Hello, welcome to a new edition of the Right Wing Populist Podcast. I am the Right Wing Populist. So today I want to talk about Iran. Unfortunately, Bibi Netanyahu is visiting the White House for like the 1,000th time since Trump's been back in office. And the reason why he's visiting Trump again is because the United States has been negotiating with Iran having to do with their nuclear capabilities. And unfortunately, Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu of Israel he has gone to the White House. He's gone to Washington, D.C. to essentially sabotage these negotiations. And I'm going to get into all of it, and I'm going to get into why it'd be such a mistake for Trump to bomb Iran again. But before we do, I need you to do something for me, folks. It's so simple. It's so easy. A child could do it. A special needs child could do it. I'm just kidding. A Democrat could do it. That's how easy this is. I need you to subscribe, whether on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you're listening to this for your podcast. And you are listening on the YouTube's like and comment helps a great deal with the algorithm. I greatly appreciate it. So yes, Bibi Netanyahu, Hitler 2.0, is visiting the White House because he wants to sabotage the negotiations between the United States and Iran. Now you may be asking yourself, why would Bibi Netanyahu want to be sabotaging the negotiations? Well, it's very simple. Israel wants regime change in Iran. Okay, they want regime change. And the reason why Israel wants regime change in Iran is for several reasons. Number one, it's their top competitor in the Middle East, Iran is. Iran, through its proxies, funds Hamas, probably funds Hezbollah. You know, it funds a lot of bad people, don't get me wrong. I'm not defending Iran. Iran is a bad country. The Ayatollah is a bad guy. There are a bunch of bad guys there in Iran. And I'm not defending the regime. But Israel wants total dominance of the region. They want to be able to maneuver within the region without having to look over their shoulder. Whether you think that's good or bad, that's the reality. Israel wants total dominance in the region. So, but you may be asking, well, if the United States is trying to negotiate Iran getting rid of its nuclear research or nuclear capabilities, wouldn't Israel support that? Well, not really, because actually, if Iran successfully negotiates a deal with the United States, then the regime stays in place. But that's a threat to Israel because Israel wants the regime gone. They don't want a competitor in the Middle East. So there's a conflict of interest here. There is a conflict of interest between what the United States wants or what's good for the United States versus what Israel wants or what's good for them. It's in the United States' interest to negotiate a deal so we don't have to go to war with Iran. Look, we don't want countries getting nuclear weapons. We're very much against that, for good reason. I mean, I actually have a little bit of a contrary take. I don't actually think countries getting nuclear weapons is as dangerous as many other people in the foreign relations community or in political science seem to think. I actually think there's a good argument that nuclear weapons have made us more safe, just empirically speaking, than less safe. But the general consensus is, and I'm sympathetic to this argument regardless of different arguments you can make, the general consensus is it's a good thing if we prevent countries from gaining nuclear weapons. So it's in our interest to try to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon, but we want to do that through negotiation, not through war. Because, if we were to actually try to take on the regime in Iran, that would require troops on the ground. It'd be Iraq 2.0. It'd be a disaster. Okay, this isn't going to be like a Venezuelan operation. We're able to take out Maduro in the dead of night. Okay, that's not what's going to happen. If we have to, part of the reason why Trump has resisted striking Iran again, even though a week or two earlier it seemed like he might do it, is because thankfully there have been people in the administration who have made it clear to Trump that it's not, there's no quick operation where we can go in and out within like 48 hours or 24 hours, take out the regime, take out the Ayatollah, and then be done with Iran. That's not going to, it would take a full-on regime change war if we're actually going to go into Iran. Trump doesn't want to do that, thankfully. He doesn't want to be a Bush 2.0, at least he shouldn't want to be Bush 2.0. So that's why, at least in theory, we've been doing these negotiations. But again, Israel doesn't want that. That's a threat to Israel because Israel wants the regime gone. Because the reality is, while I'm not disputing that Israel doesn't want Iran to get a nuclear weapon, I'm not disputing that. The whole nuclear issue is more of a pretext. It's more of a way to try to lure the United States into doing Israel's bidding. And what I mean by that is this. Israel, for almost decades now, has been trying to get the United States to go to war with Iran. Bibi tried to get W. Bush to do it. He tried to get Obama to do it. He tried to get Trump 1.0 to do it. He didn't really try to get Biden to do it, to be honest, in all fairness. Although, he definitely had talks with Biden about it, but, Bibi sort of knew he'd lost the Democrat Party by the time Biden got into office. But he's certainly been trying to get Trump 2.0 to do it. And the easiest way for the Israelis to try to lure the United States into a war, to try to convince the American people to make the United States go to war, is by talking about nuclear weapons. Iran is so close to getting a nuclear weapon. That's what Bibi Netanyahu says every 10 years, every 5 years, every 3 years, every 2 years, every year. Bibi Netanyahu runs to Congress to testify. He goes on all these television, he goes on Fox News, and he starts, going crazy saying the Iranians is so close to a nuclear weapon. That's what Bibi Netanyahu does. And then he accuses the Iranians of trying to kill Trump, which is just bizarre. But he says this every 2 seconds. That, Iran nuclear weapons, Iran nuclear weapons. It's just a pretext, folks, because now Bibi Netanyahu is again saying that the Iranians are close to a nuclear weapon, even though that issue was supposed to have been taken care of back last summer when Trump bombed their nuclear facilities. I mean, you want to remember, folks, the Trump administration said that their operation back in the summer when we struck the Iran nuclear facilities was extremely successful. We obliterated, according to the president, their nuclear capabilities and set them back years. But now it's been 8, 9, 10 months, and we're back where we started. Now, it's changed a little bit. Now, Bibi Netanyahu is saying that they don't want the Iranians to have ballistic weapons. Well, that's just a non-starter. Iran's not going to give up their ballistic weapons, their ballistic missiles. And according to reports, that's what Trump has even told the Iranians. That's what Marco Rubio, that idiot, has told the Iranians, that they can't have ballistic missiles. Well, that's then these negotiations are just fake then. Then the United States are just creating conditions where they're forcing the Iranians to say, no, the Iranians can't give up their ballistic missiles. That leaves them defenseless. Because that's what Israel wants. They want them defenseless so they can, to maneuver within the Middle East however they please. So again, while I wouldn't say the nuclear issue is totally it's not a non-issue. It is a real issue, and I don't think the Israelis want the Iranians to get a nuclear weapon. But ultimately, Iran would agree today that they won't have a nuclear weapon. I mean, they probably can't build a nuclear weapon based on what we did back in the summer. That's not the issue here. The issue here is that Israel really wants regime change. They don't want Iran to really be able to defend themselves, which is why they don't want them to have ballistic missiles. And they want the United States to go to war with Iran. So that's why Bibi Netanyahu, according to reports, have said that even if the Iranians agreed to essentially no nuclear weapons, however the precise details of that would be laid out, that's not good enough for Israel's security. That's why he's going to the White House to sabotage the negotiations, because he wants to make it clear to President Trump that Iran can't have ballistic missiles. If Trump agrees to that, then no deal is going to be able to be made. That's the reality. So this is a real instance where our interests as the United States and Israel interests do not cohere. It's not in Israel's interest for us to make a deal with Iran. It is in our interest to make a deal with Iran, but it's not in Israel's interest. So the question here is, what is President Trump going to do? Is he going to side with America's interests by making a deal? Or is he going to go along with the Israel firsters? Is he going to go with Israel's interest and bomb Iran again, or even do a regime change war for Iran? This is a real test. Is Trump going to side with U.S. interest or Iran's interest? And I want to be very clear about this. If Trump decides to go to war with Iran, or even just bomb them again, even if it's a precise bombing, it will destroy his administration. Because unlike the first time, this time it'd be so obvious Trump is just bombing Iran for the benefit of Israel. Because remember, folks, the whole issue of Iran came up again because of these protests. Remember a couple weeks ago, there were these massive, according to reports, massive protests in Iran protesting the Ayatollah, protesting the regime. And then there was all this pressure from the Israel Firsters, Mark Levin, Ben Shapiro, Josh Hammer, these idiots, people in Congress or in the Senate, people like Lindsey Graham, Ted Cruz, pushing the president, President Trump, to, even people like Bill Maher, news commentators, comedians, putting pressure on the Trump administration that we have to strike Iran again. We have to defend the protesters. And in all fairness, Trump did say that we were going to back the protesters. And we sent all these military equipment. We sent these bombers, these ships, these planes. We sent them toward the Middle East, but we didn't actually bomb them. We didn't actually attack Iran yet. And it actually led to negotiations, which we're doing right now. But the issue there wasn't about nuclear. It was supposed to be about, backing the protesters. Well, the protesting has stopped. I don't think there's any widespread protests happening in Iran right now. But now we're talking about the nuclear issue. That's now do you see what's going on here? It's all about pretext, because Israel wants us doing their bidding, so they have to come up with all these pretexts. The Israel Firsters in the United States then, they push the Israel propaganda. And Trump has been somewhat resistant, but again, he did ultimately strike Iran back in the summer. And if you want to look at Trump's approval rating, when Trump's approval rating really started to dip was when he struck Iran, because even then it was pretty obvious he was just doing that for the benefit of Israel. But now, if he does it a second time, when the pretext was the protesters, now we're back to the nuclear, it's just too obvious, folks, that we're just doing this to do Israel's bidding. And Trump's approval rating is already pretty low. Like, why do you want to do this? We just had great economic data today. The jobs numbers were far better than expected. The unemployment rate went down from 4.4 to 4.3%. We've had good GDP numbers. That's what the administration should be busy promoting and talking about, not about Iran, not about Israel. It should be about the economy. That's what the administration should be focused on. Do we really want the Trump administration to be known as like the most pro-Israel administration ever, to the point that we will do Israel's bidding even if it's not in the interest of the United States? Look, I'm not even saying you can't be nominally pro-Israel. I think Trump's first term, probably a little bit too much pro-Israel, but his first term was appropriate. He moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Got no problem with that. He was supportive of Israel, but he didn't do Israel's bidding the way he's done it, where it seems like he's doing in the second term. I mean, Israel tried getting Trump to do a full-on war with Iran during his first term, and Trump refused. He did take out Soleimani, which was a top Iranian general, but that guy was a bad guy. He was a terrorist. I have no problem with Trump taking him out. And it didn't escalate to a full-on war. So, Trump 1.0, pro-Israel, but appropriately so. Or he was still within the range of, okay, this is appropriate. But the second administration, it just seems like he'll almost always do, and maybe that's because he had much more donors who are pro-Israel backing him for his second term. Trump didn't have a lot of big money donors during his first administration because no one thought Trump would win. When Trump ran the third time, when he ran in 24, everyone thought he had a chance to win. So he got a lot of big money donors, unfortunately. Less than Kamala and Biden, but still he had a lot more than he did in 20 or even definitely 16. So, again, there's already a perception of his second term that he's way too pro-Israel. He does the bidding of Israel. So if we were to strike Iran again, it would just look so bad. Young people are already not so happy with Trump 2.0. It'll just gut any lasting support that Trump still has for young people. Again, it's just not the administration. Look, you can negotiate a deal between the United States and Iran. It will have to look pretty similar to Obama's nuclear deal with the Iranians, because that is sort of how you would do a deal. Now, there were problems with Obama's Iranian deal, with his nuclear deal with Iran. There were sunset provisions. It wasn't easy to necessarily check the facilities to make sure they weren't actually doing nuclear stuff. But even then, with the Obama administration, with the Iran deal, people forget Iran had the legal right to do nuclear research. They were part of this treaty where it allows you to do nuclear research for non-nuclear weapons. Iran was part of that. I forget the name of the treaty. I should probably know, but I don't remember. So Iran had the right to do nuclear research, but then when they did nuclear research, the Obama administration made it sound like it was some evil thing, and the Israelis were losing their mind. But Obama made the Iran deal, and it was a pretty good deal. Again, there are problems with it. So politically, Trump does have a problem with making a deal because any deal will probably have to look similar to Obama's deal, which Trump got us out of when he was president the first time. So I'm not saying it's super simple, but you can make a deal with the Iranians. You don't have to go to war. You just have to cross Israel's interests, and we'll see if the administration will do that. This will be a good tell to see whether or not Trump is actually America first, or if he'll side with Israel firsters, big donors, Bibi Netanyahu, for whatever reason. Anyway, that's it for today, folks. We should be back either later today or tomorrow. Again, please subscribe, whether on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. I greatly appreciate it. And if you are listening on the YouTube, like and comment. It helps a great deal with the algorithm. I would appreciate it so much, folks. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I hope you fall in love. Bye-bye.